What's up, Suncast Nation? It's your boy Manny here, getting ready for an exciting weekend in the sun. We'll be talking about three main topics in this episode, kind of brief on the first two. Third one really is where we're going to be putting a lot of our attention in this episode specifically. No interview for this one. Hopefully, we're going to get some for you guys next week, whether it's softball, baseball, or anything along those lines, lacrosse, flag football. We're going to try and get some interviews getting in line for you guys here. But first thing I want to talk about, beach volleyball. They're going to be starting their conference tournament at 8 a.m. You guys will be listening to it. Probably already started once you guys are listening to this episode. And try to put this out as soon as possible. But it will be the Ave Maria Gyrenes who are sitting the number one seed right now. Congratulations to them for winning the regular season championship. They will be playing against the Knights. Then you have the fourth seed Loyola Wolfpack playing against the fifth seed Bears. Then you've got the third seeded Royals against the sixth seeded Crusaders. And then the Weber Warriors in the second seed playing against the Rams and the seventh seed. Games all start Friday. Again, 8 a.m. is the first game, and then they will conclude on Saturday. The championship game will be at 2 p.m. Again, that'll be at 2 p.m. All games will be broadcasted exclusively on the Athletes Go Live. I believe there is going to be a link for it on the Sun Conference website, so you guys can go out and check for that. Also, want to give a shout out to all the all conference or to all the postseason award winners, I should say, for beach volleyball. We've got Lily Grasso and Rihanna Thomas, pair of the year. You also have Rihanna Thomas being the player of the year from Ave Maria, both the pair and player of the year. Then you have Samantha Gugliata, the freshman of the year from Loyola. And you have Reva Godbolt for the champion of character from Warner. And then the coach of the year from Ave Maria, Tegan McCormick. Congratulations to all players and coach for winning the postseason awards. Then we're also going to give a quick recap on baseball that already started, obviously, for this week's series. Weber versus St. Thomas, Florida Memorial versus Southeastern, and then Kaiser versus Warner. Those are the three games that concluded Thursday night. For the Weber St. Thomas series, which I think is the series of the week, and I'm pretty sure Reagan would agree. Weber walked it off 1-0. Very, very tight game. Very, very good start for the Bobcats, but they definitely need to come out and win these next three games. They need to at least split in the series. I think that would give them a good chance come conference tournament time. As for the Warriors, I think they definitely can get a 3-1. A sweep is maybe a little bit hard. I do think the Bobcats can get one off them, but it ain't gonna be easy being at Babson Park. Then we got Southeastern 12, that Florida Memorial 2. Fire just handling business, doing what they do. Isaac Nunez 1 for 3, 4 RBIs, a run as well as a home run. Mr. Nunez just continues to just kill it in the box. And then we have the Kaiser Seahawks beating the Warner Royals 12-5. Again, another series that I think Kaiser will handle business. Maybe not a sweep, but I definitely see at least 3 wins for the Seahawks, and same thing for the Fire. Both those series could go sweeps as well. But the main topic of this one's going to be the softball scene here in the Sun Conference. I think what a weekend, first of all, it was, and what a weekend we have coming up. Two back-to-back series, and they're involving one of the same teams in both. We'll start for a recap of last weekend real quick. Southeastern beat Ave in the series 2-1. Southeastern took game number one, 3-0, game number two, 6-1, and then Ave was able to avoid the sweep and take game number three, 6-4. Warner swept the Weber Warriors, a very impressive win for the Warner Royals, 4-0, 7-0, and then 4-0 again. And then the receiving votes, Bobcats beat the Florida Memorial Lions in the series 2-1. The Bobcats took game number one, 15-4, then game number two, 4-1, and then Florida Memorial took game number one in the comeback variation, 8-7. And Kaiser, the series of the week that was, beat the, at the time, number 18 Coastal Georgia Mariners. Now they're number 17 as the polls that came out yesterday in the series 2-1. And then Coastal took game number one, 4-1. Kaiser bounced back 4-1 in game number two. And then Kaiser finished it out 5-2 in game number three. Those are the two series I really wanted to harp on, just kind of some of the takeaways from that one. I mean, big one for Bobcats and Lions. The Bobcats bats, obviously, you put up 15 in the first, then you put up 4, then you put up 7. Clearly, when the Bobcats have the bats rolling, that is going to be the biggest thing for them. You look at the first two games, only combined 3 errors in those two games. And game number one, 15 hits on 33 at bats. And then the game number two, 5 hits on 24 at bats. Even again, the scoring wasn't what it was. Obviously, the game number one, they came out guns blazing. Everything was working for them. The MVP for me in game number one, Maya Achenbach, 3 for 5, 3 runs, 5 RBIs, a home run, a double. She was just absolutely killing it. Game number two, Miss Anna Toon, who has continued to have a stellar first year with the Bobcats, 4 for 4 in her at bats, 1 run, 1 RBI. The other takeaway for me though was the pitching. Anna Toon, who was credited in the both wins, gainer in game number one and game number two. First game, 3 innings pitched, only 1 earned run, 2 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 4 flyouts. Game number two, the entire 7 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 5 hits, no walks, 6 strikeouts, 13 flyouts, 1 ground out in 96 pitches thrown. She was absolutely killing it. Again, I do want to give a shout out to the Lions. They were able to come back in that final game. 10 hits on 26 at bats. The MVP for me on the offensive side of things was Justice, 2 for 3, 2 runs, 3 RBIs. Big, big reason that the Lions are able to pull it out in the end and come back on the Bobcats. In the circle, credited for the win was Silva, 6.2 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 9 hits, a walk, 2 strikeouts, 4 flyouts, 8 groundouts, and 78 pitches thrown. But again, I think the biggest takeaway for this game was the fact the Bobcats, we see how they can be such an offensive threat, and that's going to be very important coming into this weekend. And I'll touch on that in a minute here. But we see that when they have the groove, they can put up a lot of runs. They can make it hard on defenses. They can make it hard on pitchers. So I'm very curious to see how that momentum from the first two games, more so than the third game, because again, the Bobcats were on pace to sweep the Lions, just couldn't finish it out. So they definitely have that kind of bad taste in their mouth, and I'm expecting them to come very aggressive in this next series. It's going to be a very, very important one for both teams involved. And then when we talk about the Kaiser Seahawks beating the Coastal Georgia Mariners, that's a big game for Kaiser, just because it kind of proves that yes, even though Coastal has been being Coastal, even though St. Thomas has really emerged here, I believe is the number 2 team in the conference, even though Southeastern is still Southeastern, you can't really sleep on these Seahawks. They're scrappy. They understand that maybe they're being overlooked, that maybe they are flying under the radar, but you do that, you can sneak up on some teams. You can catch some teams, maybe not lacking, but you're not gonna necessarily be on the front of their mind. And I think that kind of happened here for the Mariners. You take game number one pretty not comfortably, but you handle business so for the most part 4-1. Kaiser turns it around, does the same thing to you, and you have a winner take all game number three on the road at West Palm Beach. That's tough. That's very, very, very tough to do. In that game number one, though, for the Mariners, no errors, 8 hits on 27 at bats. Did he have 8 left on base though? And then you also have 2 stolen bases, but caught stealing twice. MVP for me from this game, Rory Rhodes, 2 for 4, 1 run. And of course, Bryce Peacock doing what she does in that circle. 7 innings pitched, all seven, 1 earned run, 5 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. She was absolutely killing it, as she has been all season, as she has been for the past 2 seasons. She has been a thorn in the side for everybody in the Sun Conference, and she continues to do that in this season. Game number two, though, when things got real interesting, the Seahawks, 1 earned run, 9 hits, 25 at bats, 6 left on base. A lot of left on bases from both teams here. Kind of makes you wonder what could have been. They also had 4 RBIs to allow for all 4 runs. MVP for me, Lizzie Small, 2 of 3 in the box, 1 run, 2 RBIs. And also, you had Miss Barella Beta, 7 innings pitched, no earned runs, 4 hits, 2 walks, 1 strikeout. Very, very interesting thing, very interesting dynamic kind of forming here for the Seahawks. And I'll get to that in talking about their next series coming up into this weekend. I liked what I saw, and think that was a big reason for the final win in the series, where another MVP for me was Molly Reed in that game number three, but Lizzie Small also had a very strong. The duo pitching between Small and Beta was really on display in that game number three. Small 4 innings pitched, Beta 3 innings pitched, 5 hits for Small, no hits for Beta, 2 earned runs for Small, no earned runs for Beta, 2 walks, as well as in the 62 pitches she threw. Meanwhile, Beta only 31 pitches thrown. But again, I think the dynamic that was forming there was something that we're going to have to try and keep an eye on for the rest of the season. Because we know what Lizzie Small is going to give you in the circle, but if you're able to have another pitcher who can last 7 innings like she did in game number two, or you can split duties there with Small when Small continues to be ineffective with bats, I think that gives the Seahawks a new dynamic, a new interesting look, and we'll see if that continues for the rest of the season. For me, the takeaways for this game, the Kaiser error count, they had pretty not high, but I feel like the error counts kind of hurt them for the most part, even though they overcame it in the end. I do need to see that a little bit better, especially against competition like Coastal, like Southeastern, like St. Thomas this weekend. I definitely need to see that error count go low, because the last thing you want to do is give these top teams, we're talking about Coastal, who is a top 25 team, a top 20 team. They're going to only go up. You're talking about the Bobcats, who are on the cusp. And I mean on the cusp, I mean they're literally vote probably from getting into that top 25. Southeastern gonna stay in that receiving votes era, that receiving votes area. Maybe move up in the top 25 if possible. So we're talking about three teams that minimum receiving votes. You're gonna have to try and play perfect ball, not perfect softball, but near perfect softball, and you don't want to give them any extra opportunities. Left on base was another takeaway from both teams. I mentioned the winners for each team from each game. They had at least four people left on base throughout a game. Kaiser had four in game number three. Kaiser had six in game number two, and then Coastal had eight in game number one. You're getting runners on base, but you definitely want to try and bring them home because especially when you look at the total score count, again, 4-1, 4-1, 5-2, you add in two more of those people that were left on base, things get different. you know, it's different when you start playing down three or up three as opposed to up five or down one. Things like that are definitely a situation that you can't afford to give up. So when you're able to get runners on base, you really, really want to try and capitalize on it. Are you going to bring everybody home? Of course not. That's not how it works. But leaving four on base, it's gonna be a lot. That's a lot that adds up at the end when you look back at the box score and you say, we kind of left some there, especially depending on how the innings end. Are they ending the way you want them to end? Are they ending because the other team made a great play as opposed to you not capitalizing on a mistake or capitalizing on opportunity? So you definitely want to also take that into consideration. One play that kind of stood out for me for the Seahawks, specifically Molly Reed. Again, game number one, my MVP, 2 of 3. Game number three, my MVP, 1 for 3, 1 run in both of those games, 2 RBIs in game number three. I like what I was seeing, looking at the numbers and understanding that she was kind of a unsung hero, so to speak, reliable in the box, big when it mattered most. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on her to see if she's going to be another piece of this Kaiser team that continues to develop, that continues to really help them achieve their goals and continues to step forward as being a more of a household name. That definitely wanted to give her some of her flowers there and let her know, like, we see these things and I think they're gonna continue up. Will she have another kind of outing like this? Maybe, maybe not, but we'll see because I definitely think it's doable for her. The other note I saw, the Kaiser pitching circle, like I mentioned, small and beta, that little duo. I'm seeing a lot of duos right now for the top teams in the conference, even those teams that are in the middle of the pack. I definitely think that is very important. I've talked to Reagan about it before. I've talked to people on NAISB. I've talked to people around the conference. You want to have at least two. It's hard to just ride one hand, because first of all, if you ride one arm, you're not gonna sweep many series. You might win two out of the three, but you're not gonna get that third win. Sometimes that third win is the difference between you being a number one seed, being a number two seed, missing the conference tournament altogether. So it's definitely important for teams in the top that have aspirations for not just a conference championship, but a red banner, a World Series appearance at least, to have at least a two-headed monster in that circle. And right now, the Kaiser Seahawks do have that. The last note I had from this series, the coastal hitting outside of Peacock and Mills, I think, and that was something that I saw before the season even started. That we know what Coastal is going to going to give you, but aside from Peacock and Mills on the batting side, I need to see that third person really step up, really, really be a more consistent threat. It don't got to be a specific person, but I do want to see another batter really be a threat for this Coastal team because if Peacock's able to get on base, if Mills able to get on base, which they do at a really good rate, who is going to be the one to bring them in? Who is going to be the one to, if we can't get to them in the batting order for a few batters, who can be the one to get us there? Obviously you understand where your bread and butter is going to be. It's going to be Peacock, it's going to be Mills. But after that, how can we continue to milk this offensive, especially groove? Once you get in a rally, it's easy, but to start that rally can be the hardest part of it. So I definitely want to see a little bit better hitting outside of those two. Again, doesn't have to be out of this world, but just enough to be able to say, okay, we might have gotten through Peacock and Mills, but we got to worry about this half of the batting order or this back end or this front end. So definitely want to see them get better in that department. As for this weekend, again, this is gonna be a pretty quick episode. I don't think it's gonna be anything too crazy. But as for this weekend, I think it's pretty simple. The series of the weekend is Kaiser at St. Thomas. Like that is what a lot of people are gonna be looking at. That's what I'm gonna be looking at. I'm sure Reagan's gonna be having an eye on that, along with other series around the nation. Um, for me, some of the storylines, the pitching duel I just mentioned, Small and Beta versus Tune and Vizcaino. I think even though I was talking about Anna Tune and she was the one that was credited with the wins, Melody was doing her thing in that circle as well, and she's been doing her thing all year. I think they're different pitchers. I think Anna is a little different pitcher than Melody, and just small things, nothing crazy. Both still are stellar pitchers, both still in the top 10 in ERA. Both have garnered and earned all the respect that they have and continue to gain in the conference. And Small and Beta, you're coming off of a strong, strong series. You're coming off of a series where both sides were on display. Both of them showed their abilities, their prowess. It's going to be an interesting one. I do think when we look at it, I'm more locked in, if I'm being honest, on Small and Tuna, but in Tune, but I think the overall aspect is going to be something that cannot be overlooked because again, they kind of cancel each other out. Small and Tune cancel each other out. Beta and Viscano cancel each other out. So who will get that edge? It won't be big. I promise you, it's not gonna be a gap. It's gonna be very, very small. Could be, a bounce there, a foul ball there, that kind of stuff. It's not gonna be anything crazy. But I do think it's gonna be something that we need to look at. And I think that is where it's gonna be. That is the beginning. That's the first note for me, just because I think it starts and ends with the duo in the circle for whichever every team comes out on top. After that, we talk about Kaiser. We talk about the batting. It's going to be a situation where the storyline is going to be the batting of St. Thomas will be tested and the batting of Kaiser versus the pitching of St. Thomas. Because Kaiser right now leads the conference in runs, RBIs, walks, and 30 batting percentage. This team can put up runs. This team can put pressure on your defense. The defense of the Bobcats will be tested, not just in the circle, but behind them from the outfield. All of it will be tested. This will be the Bobcats' big kind of calling card because yes, they beat Southeastern at the beginning of conference play. We're not taking anything away from that. That was huge. That was big for them. In the same breath, though, the Kaiser Seahawks, they I think are a different animal. I understand they're not receiving votes. I understand they're not in the top 25. I understand all that. But I promise you, after what they did to Coastal, if they do something similar to St. Thomas, they will have an RV next to their name by the next time these polls come out. Will it be high in the RV count? Probably not. But I think the nation will have taken notice of this. The Seahawks feel like they are one series win away from being in that conversation on the national level. I do think so. And why wouldn't they? St. Thomas, they're one series win away from firmly kicking in the door. Some people could say they should have been top 25 already. Some people should have said they should have been receiving votes after the Southeastern series win. I'm not saying I'm agreeing with those people. I'm not saying I'm not agreeing with those people. What I do believe is the winner of this series will have a lot to bring to the table when it comes to resume, when it comes to not just right now in the polls, but come the end of the season. It's gonna be very important. I mentioned what Kaiser leads in the conference. St. Thomas, they lead in extra base hits. So again, you can, even though it kind of is hard for them to get on the groove sometime. And again, I know they're coming off of a series where they put up 15 in one game, but the team is fourth in batting average. The team is fifth in runs. It's not something that has been consistent so far. They've had some bright spots, don't get me wrong. But overall, they haven't necessarily been as consistent as a Kaiser team has. It's just the way it is. That's what the numbers show you. That's what the eye test shows you. But when they do get their chance to where that extra base hits come in, if you're struggling, but then all of a sudden you've got, I think back to that game one series win against the Warner Royals. It was a slow, burning out kind of game. It was a pitching dominated game between Toon and Miss Morton, but it came down to a double by Toon, got her to second, and then a Palacio RBI walk off double that brought Toon home for the win. So even though they might not get you there consistently, they might not get you with the death by a thousand cuts, but when you give them a chance, they will take it and run with it. They will turn doubles. They may even turn a triple here and there. We've seen them be able to hit someone's over the fence. I'm looking at someone like Palacio. I'm looking at someone like Toon, Gilbert. These are the names that you really want to keep an eye on in those moments because when the lights are brightest, they do come through. I've seen it with my own two eyes. We've all seen it in the conference. It's going to be such an interesting series. I think it goes either way. You know what I mean? I 100% understand that Kaiser has checked every box. They have the pitching, they have the defense, they have the offense. Some might say their offense is better than their defense. Understandably so. You can say that. You definitely have an argument statistically, and you also have an argument again with the eye test. But I'm gonna give the edge to St. Thomas, not because I'm a St. Thomas guy, simply because I think this comes down to home and away. I do think that's a big thing. I think Kaiser beating Coastal, a big part of that was being on the road. That's not taking anything away from Kaiser because they went out and earned it. You know what I mean? They had to win two in a row against Coastal to win that series. That's a hard thing to do. But same thing can be said for the Bobcats having the edge here. Even though they might not have the offense to go toe to toe, I don't think they can go into a trading blows slug match kind of thing. I do think the pitching will be very important for St. Thomas. If the Seahawks are hitting singles and doing these things, getting on base, whether with walks, whether with hits, I don't I don't think the Bobcats can outlast that. I don't think they can rely on the batting that much in this type of game. If it's a give up a hit there, give up a hit here, whatever kind of thing, I think that favors the Bobcats. If it's a constant, you gotta kind of you feel the runs always are coming. You feel like they're always a runner on base. I think that favors Kaiser. That's a game that favors Kaiser. If it's a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, a little bit more, oh, we get you here. Maybe nothing there, but then oh, we get you there. That favors the Bobcats. Two kind of different styles. We'll see which team adapts more. We'll see which team kind of responds more. That first game could be very, very important in setting the tone, not just for the rest of that game, but for the rest of the series. I even would go as far as to say the winner of game one wins the series. I don't think there's a sweep here. I will be very shocked if there's a sweep here. If it is, it better be a close sweep. I'm talking about 1 run difference in each three of the three games. But I do think it will be a situation where the winner of game number one will win the series. That's where I can kind of lean towards. And under the radar series that I have is actually Warner at Southeastern, receiving both Southeastern. I'm looking, again, the Morton and Hughes pitching duo for Warner versus the pitching circle of the Fire. I do think the Fire might have an argument for the deepest pitching circle in the conference. I don't think that's necessarily a hot take. Some people might be a little taken aback by it, but I think that's pretty understandable. You got at least three players that you can throw out there at any given time, multiple sometimes in a game, and they all contribute and they are all well known for what they can do in that circle. You also have both teams in the same area when it comes to RBIs, but Southeastern has the advantage in hits and batting average, while Warner takes the advantage in extra base hits. Again, a similar situation to the Kaiser St. Thomas, where we have a situation as Southeastern, they can get you, they can get on base, whether with singles, with walks, situations like that. And Warner, while they may not be able to do it consistently, when they get their chances, they will try and capitalize on them. So we'll see which of these can really, really which of those styles in this series can come out a little bit more for the team that wins it. In this one, though, I lean more towards Southeastern just because of the depth they have in the circle. And again, their consistency is a little bit more on the offensive side of things than the Warner Royals. One thing I will keep an eye on, Southeastern stolen base totals. I think that's an underrated part of their game. I think that's an underrated stat that I was kind of taken aback by when I saw it. So we'll see if they are going to really put pressure on the catchers for the Royals, for the defense for the Royals of the base, and put themselves in good position with good base running. I think that could be another situation where more of an X factor. If the Southeastern Fire get good amount of stolen bases, which they have so far this year, they'll come out with this victory a little bit more comfortably than I maybe have them right now. But I still think the Fire come out with the 2-1 minimum, maybe even a sweep, definitely in play. But don't count out those Warner Royals late. They came out of a great series against Weber, holding the Warriors shutout. They're going to come in with a little bit of something to prove to say, look, that wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a fluke. This is the level that we are trying to play at. And I believe Warner was actually at home. So it's also going to be a road trip for the Royals, and I also think that's going to play a factor into it for sure. As for the other two series, Florida Memorial at Coastal, I have Coastal on the sweep. I think it's pretty self-explanatory there, even though the Lions are coming off of a good series end with that win against the Bobcats. I think Coastal, because they're coming off of a series loss, they're hungry. They're hungry for that. They want to get back on the winning ways. As for Weber Ave, I got Weber 2-1 in that series. I think Weber's similar to Coastal, hungry, want to come back after not even putting up a run in their series against Warner, against their crosstown rival. They definitely want to get back into their winning ways and get on the right side of this series early. I think they win the first two games, but I do think Ave is similar to Southeastern, how they got them in the last game, kind of what happens here. A lot of good games on for softball, for baseball this weekend. Again, the beach volleyball championships are underway. At probably by the time you're listening to this, they might even be over. So definitely try and keep in touch with that. With that being said, though, I appreciate you guys for listening. Again, no interview this time, but we will try and have one by next week's episode. Promise you on that one. No matter the sport, if you guys want to be on this, please reach out to me, reach out to Reagan, reach out to the Instagram page. Let's try and get this rolling. We love having the interviews. We love talking, whether it's coaches, players, both. Sometimes we love to do that to really give our conference and all the people who create such great memories, who create such great moments in the conference on the athletic side, give them their flowers. Definitely sit down and have a good conversation with them. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.